So you're now realizing inflammation, oxidative stress. Um, you did some studies around chronic stress and cortisol alignment. I'm
Yes.
curious to ask you about what you know about zeta potential.
Okay. Well, what we did, and Stephen Sinatra got involved, and Gaetan Chevalier, who's a physicist, they were the ones who put this together. But anyhow, so what we cardiologists, thick, sticky blood, that's their big issue.
Yes.
Inflammation. If it's all built around that. So we ended up doing a study where we went in and we measured the electrical potential of red blood cells prior to grounding, and then after we grounded them for a half hour, whatever. And so what we learned was as soon as you ground the body, then the red blood cells, you have an increase of almost 300% increase in the negative surface charge on red blood cells. That means you increase the red blood cells, you know, that's a huge percentage.
Mm.
It would be down, normally the average person is around 5%, negative 5 millivolts. But as soon as you ground them for a few minutes, then they're going to jump up to 15 millivolts negative. So now these little red blood cells are negatively charged, and now they are like little metaphor would be magnets. They you push little negative magnets together, they will push each other apart.
Right.
So now all the red blood cells, there's no more rouleau formation. There's no more stickiness. The red blood cells they push each other apart. Now the blood is thin, can get in and out of the capillaries. A person turns pink within 4 or 5 minutes after they ground,
Wow.
because the circulation improves so significantly.
Wow.
And
So just
and the
massively improves
inflammation.
blood flow. And that, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
delivers oxygen and nutrients much more easy to the tissues.
yeah, yeah. And then the inflammation drops within a few minutes later.
Wow.
So,
That that
see
um
if you,
that could be the most powerful of the whole lot. But
well,
I'm
that is,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm
But
curious.
again,
Sorry, Clint, go ahead.
it's nature. It's nature. We put our feet back on the earth, the body equalizes with the earth, and you can't have inflammation in a grounded object. And to put this in perspective, the animals who live in the wild, they don't, I mean, the inflammation, or cancer is almost unheard of in the natural world.
Yeah.
You
But
have to
now,
go destroy their environment. But
yeah.
in the animals who live indoors with their owners, 50% of them die from cancer just like their owners.
Yeah, that's a huge
So
business. Now,
this is an environmental health disorder.
yes.
Everybody's worried about what they're eating, all those kind of things, but we accidentally lost our ground. This thing that maintains the electrical stability of the body, primarily the immune system. We lost the electrical stability that maintains the ability for the immune system to function as it was designed in nature. And
Right.
now it's running hot and it's oxidizing and burning up the body.
Wow. And run through some of the conditions that you've seen. I'm sure they're into hundreds that improve when you ground properly.
Well, it's like I tell everybody, I'll give you an example. Like MS is a very common one. That's the one I started out with a lot with the women. They were the ones, the radiology or the docs would give me, because they say, you see if you can help. We're tired of them. But anyhow, um, so I could take a woman eventually after I just put an electrode patch in her hand. And usually they have, loss of control, muscle control and all that. And I would just put an electrode patch in the hand. I did this early on. And then within a few minutes, the pain would start coming way down. That was the the electrons reducing the reactive uh, oxygen species,
Mm-hmm.
reducing them. And then after that, the circulation would begin to improve because their blood was thin, and they would start turning pink. Their demeanor would change. They weren't in as much pain. And then just all of a sudden, they would just kind of be happier, a little happier. But anyhow, I grounded people with MS for almost 20 some years. And I can honestly take a woman today and put a patch in her hand, and 5 minutes later and say, you no longer have MS. What you have now is damage from
Right.
MS.
Of
But
course.
as long as you get grounded and stay grounded the rest of your life, you'll never have MS again.
Wow.
And so that's a hard thing to say, but yeah, and they have to experience it. But it doesn't matter. It's anything that we have. I mean, it's like I could go on. It's like COPD. I put an electrode patch here and an electrode patch here. 5 minutes later, they can breathe like a teenager on the ball field. So what did I do? They're suffering from cytokine storms, a chronic cytokine storm in the lungs, and so as soon as you put a patch here and patch here, it's like you're filling them with free electrons. So it instantly stops the cytokine storm,
Wow.
and then they can start breathing. It doesn't mean they have full capacity, but then a few years later, they will have full capacity if they get grounded, stay grounded,
Wow.
because the lungs will heal up. And I could go on and on. I don't want to touch on anything that's too political or anything,
Yeah.
but COPD, if you got the carryover of COPD, just put a patch on it and take
Wow.
5 minutes. Or
Wow.
go outdoors. Go outdoors. Put your bare feet on the earth. If you can, put your hands on your bare feet on the earth. Is just sit there, and if you have a chance, get a little bit of sunlight while you're doing it, because that's the other problem. We lost our vitamin D because we put roofs over our heads.
Yes.
We've removed ourselves from nature.
Yes.
We are nature. We are nature. And I'll say this about, it's like cancer, and a lot of people have significant remission from many, many things when you ground, because you can't have most of these health disorders unless you have chronic inflammation for an extended period. And they build up over times and years and so on. And it's like certain cancers, they go in and they develop within a pocket of inflammation, and they differentiate from the other cells, and then they become a their own thing, and then they get their own blood cell or supply and whatever. But if you can go in there and reduce the inflammation that's protecting it, then eventually the immune system will get to it. And what does an immune system do? It will reduce it.